participate with me here for 4 or 5. Got that right? Thank you.
Yeah. Then said the Lord, doest thou will to be angry? So Jonah went out of the city and sat on the east side of the city, and there made him a booth and set it in the shadow till he might see what would become of the city.
Okay, so Jonah knew that God was slow to anger, right? But I've been through that. He knows God's slow to anger. He still wanted the Lord to execute his wrath swiftly on the Ninevites, right? Deal with them. Take out those people, man. I can't stand them. They're wicked sinners. I know prophets, I'm a prophet. They're going to wipe out Israel. They're loving people. They're going to crush Israel. Take them out, God, quick. God asked the sulking Jonah whether his anger was justified. He says, God asked the question, that thou well to be, are you okay to be angry? Have you any right to be angry, Jonah? Ugh. When you're by yourself and you got the Bible, you're reading and you're talking or whatever, you're driving, and all of a sudden God asks you a question, a serious question. You and God time. You okay with being angry, Jonah? This question implies a negative response. Jonah had no right to be angry. Let me ask you folks a question this morning. I don't think it'll turn out to be any kind of debate, but let me ask you a question this morning. Should a person ever angrily question what God does, even when it differs from what the expectations or wants from that person is?
Angrily, yes.
Should a person ever angrily question what God does, even when it differs?
Not angrily.
That's my question. Should a person ever angrily question what God does? If you think yes, it's okay to, nobody's gonna, they might throw rocks at you instead of me. That would refer the rocks to you. Yes.
There's been times, and I'll be real, in my prayer life and stuff that's happened, I've been angry with God in prayer. Because I didn't understand the circumstance of what was going on. It was a real confusing time, real bad time. And you're doing right, and it feels like you take one step forward and get knocked 10 steps back. And you're not understanding what is going on. Why is this happening? I'm doing the right thing, and I'm still feel like I'm being crushed. We don't know if Jonah had family that these people had killed. I've never really sat and thought about it till just now. Maybe Jonah was so angry because he had family members or children or whatever that these people killed. These people were
horrible. So let me ask you a question.
But
are you saying maybe it's okay to be angry?
No, I'm not saying that.
But you have before.
But I have.
Me too.
And I think everybody in this room has before one time or another. And we're just human.
I got a little angry when my mom passed. I don't know if it was anger towards the Lord or anger towards the circumstances. My mom was found, thinking maybe she could be alive today. But sovereignty of God is all over that. I'm just telling you, I got angry with God. Not long, for a few days, a week, I had to wrestle, and God had to put me in my place. But I'm right there. I understand what you're saying. Yes, Jonathan.
David, if we're looking at the Bible, David often expressed anger with God for what he was doing, but then he always comes back and says, but then I went into the house of the Lord. Or, when we see Job as well, got angry about what happened to him.
He did,
He always comes back, and when God comes and confronts them, they always repent. Jonah never repented. Jonah hardened his heart and said, yeah, I'm right. So
There's probably a lot of David and Job's in this room. And God comes in and he says, hey Job, come on now. Hey David. And we go into church or we go to a private room and talk to the Lord, and the Lord kind of gently sets us straight a little bit. Sometimes gently, sometimes not.
I was going to say that anger is an emotion. There's a good way to do it and a bad way to do it. But we can know what to do in our heart to do it is right, but it's really hard to do it. I love the passage where the man's like, I believe to help my unbelief. So that's where sometimes I am. If I'm angry with God, I'm like, I know I'm not supposed to be angry. This is wrong, but he already knows what's in my heart, so I might as well just admit it.
Right, right.
I'm mad, you know, but I don't want to be mad. Forgive me for my anger, but I talk it through with him. I'm like, Lord, help me understand, but if you never help me understand, help me to love you and trust you anyways.
That's good, Deborah. Probably all of us are like, that's where we are, all of us probably, like, we know we don't want to be angry with you, but you know, we can't hide our anger, we're angry with you, but help me to understand and not be angry. That's awesome.
Well, the Lord tells you, come and let's reason together with one another. You know, He wants you to talk your frustrations. He wants you to talk what's bothering you over with Him. He wants that relationship with you.
And sometimes you have to, when you're praying, sometimes you have to be real with yourself, like Deb was saying, that you gotta be real with yourself, and you gotta be real with God. It's like, God, this is how I'm feeling. I don't understand it, and I am mad, but I have to figure out where to channel this, and how to channel it, so I don't sin against you, and make a reproach on your name. You know, and I think that's where we could all work at, you know, how to channel where it needs to go.
I think we're all talking about, we don't want to be fake Christians. We want to recognize I'm angry with you, God. But I don't want to be angry with you, God. I realize it's not, right? But help me, walk me through this, God. And transparency and genuineness is a breath of fresh air in Christendom. We all struggle in this room. And it's okay. We can all come up along the side and put our arms around each other and say, I'm struggling right there with you. Can you help me? Can I help you? That's where victory is won, because Christ is constantly at work helping us. Great input this morning, folks. Yes, brother.
You mentioned one word when you were talking about your mother,
Yes.
and it was you wrestled. And anger can lead, any type of anger, if I don't know if it's right anger, wrong anger, whatever, but if it leads you to wrestle, it's kind of, how do I want to describe it? When you wrestle with the Word, when you wrestle with God's Word, when you're looking for answers and you wrestle it, I always tell Carla, you know, you're going to have to wrestle with it. She'll ask me sometimes, you know, what I think about this. I said, that's your own wrestling match. Until you come, you know, you're going to have to wrestle with it. And I think that's a big deal when it comes to reconciling yourself to God. You know God's right all the time.
Yeah, that's what she said.
But you got to wrestle yourself. You got to wrestle with the Word. You got to wrestle in prayer. You've got to just get down and dirty with it sometimes and wrestle it until you reconcile yourself to God. And I think that's where God really wants us to be, is we're wrestling, we're struggling, we're putting effort into understanding why God is doing it, and we may never understand.
So as he's wrestling, let's find out how he deals with his wrestling, okay? What's he do? He gets his protractor out, and he gets his pencil, puts it in his ear, and he gets his saw out, and he goes out and he builds what? A booth, right? And like tree branches and everything, and he wants some shade to sit under. The king, by the way, the king is sitting in ashes. Apparently, he was up on a hill and he had a clear view of the city. Why he waited to see what would happen to the city, it's a little difficult to understand. Probably, I wonder if he thinks that God maybe will answer his plea and he'll go and judge the city anyway. But he was wrong and his action was childish. Well, at any rate, Jonah did not realize that the booth he made was going to be used of God as a school of discipline to teach him one of the greatest, if not the greatest, lessons of his life and our life. In application, it is impossible to separate Jonah's Jewishness from his actions. And if I touch on something, just have whatever. He was a very prejudiced person. He was very Jewish in heart, very prejudiced. He is one who believes not only in defending his own territory and living for the benefit of his immediate kinsmen, but has a spirit of antagonism towards others and hopes that God shares his attitude. Nineveh, he felt, should be barred from the grace of God, right? Barred from the grace of God. Those Gentile dogs, barred from the grace of God. Should anybody be barred from the grace of God? Folks, those are souls that Jonah could care less about. Are there souls that you could care less about? Seriously. Now God's going to turn up the heat, literally, in Jonah's life, and we're going to see what's in his heart. So letter B on your outline, the explanation of the Lord, and this is in verses 6 to 11. This time God gave him a visual lesson, the explanation of the Lord, letter B. God rebuked Jonah, not to a storm in this instance, but by exposing the selfishness of his likes and his dislikes. Look at little number 1, the illustration prepared. And who would read verses 6, 7, and 8 for us, nice and loud? Yes, please, Sarah.
And the Lord God prepared a gourd and made it to come up over Jonah, that it might be a shadow over his head to deliver him from his grief. So Jonah was exceeding glad at the gourd. But God prepared a worm when the morning rose the next day, and it smote the gourd that it withered. And it came to pass when the sun did rise, that God prepared a vehement east wind, and the sun beat upon the head of Jonah that he fainted, and wished in himself to die, and said, "It is better for me to die than to live."
Thank you, Sarah. So after Jonah builds his booth, God causes what to spring up? And miraculously rapidity too. What? A gourd. Fast. I'm growing, Sarah, I wanted to show you Marco Polo every now and then. I know she likes gardening a lot. I got all these little cucumber plants that are about this big. The spinach, 2 different kinds of spinach and 2 different kinds of lettuce. And yesterday I would just put in some green beans because it's getting nice and hot and toasty. These things are growing so slow, but this gourd, like what? Like one morning, there's no gourd, the next, it's like, wow, this is a massive gourd, right? Folks, how tender of God to see the physical comfort of his servant, even though his servant, in this situation, Jonah, was completely out of God's plan. And still, sometimes we're completely out of God's plan, still God sees to our comfort and our needs. Wow, that's an attribute of God. That's incredible of God to do that. As the plant grew, it covered the prophet's booth, obviously protecting Jonah from the rays of the intense desert sun. The fact that the plant grew overnight, folks, shows that it was a miracle. Like the fish comes up and he swallows the Jonah, takes him over, spits him out, the plant comes up. God is all in control. He is sovereign. So because of the shade, Jonah was exceedingly glad. As he was exceedingly angry at the beginning of chapter. He's all over the place with his emotions, folks. We got to be a little careful. Emotions are good. I love to be happy and joyful, and sometimes mourning, but we got to be careful. He's angry, and then he's glad, and he's happy, and he's all over the place because of his own desires of his own heart, not the desires necessarily of God's heart. He was glad for his comfort, but he wasn't glad for the relief of the Ninevites. Sometimes you're so happy for yourself, then you're not so happy for your neighbor, your friend. God blesses them, and you're like, why God bless them? They don't even love him like I love him. I go to church 4 times a week, and I do this, and I learn this, and I do this, and these people are heathens, and why does God bless them? Shame on me, and shame on you for thinking that way of people. Reach out to them and care for them and love them. The Ninevites of your neighborhood, the Ninevites of your life, their souls. He didn't have long to enjoy this relief, did he? Compassion, mercy. But I want to tell you, we always love to preach compassion and mercy and love. Verse 6 and 7 are identical beginnings. They introduce 2 aspects of God's nature: his ability to deliver and his ability to destroy. He can deliver and he can destroy, folks. God is sovereign, but he doesn't always act in acts of compassion. Not always. As the ones who As the one that gives life, he has the right to take life, right? Somebody mentioned Job. He has the right to take life too, doesn't he? Destruction of the gourd by the worm, both divinely appointed. It symbolizes the future destruction of Israel by the Syrians. When the sun rises, God prepared a vehement east wind. The verb prepared continues to show God is all over Jonah's life. God prepares things for you and I. He's all over your life. Because he loves you. You're his son, daughter. You're a child of God. He is all over your life. Don't ever think there's a day in your life, a moment in your life that God isn't preparing and imparting and taking care of and involved in your life. He always is. So he lets the sun beat down on Jonah. And that same word smote in verse 7, beat in verse 8, it's a Hebrew word, it means to attack. So think of God. He's attacking Jonah's head with the vehement east wind and the sun beating down on him. God's dealing with him. Like Elijah, he's to the point where, okay, God, I'm your prophet. I was so happy a couple of verses ago because of the gourd. Now I just want to die. Don't you? You don't want to be in that situation as a woman of God and a man of God, right? No. God, rather, Ephesians talks about the ship like this. I don't like my Christian life to be like that. I want to go more. If I have to do this, okay, and like this, and go like this, I call them baby steps. I'm not radical. Okay, you're in a marathon, not the 100-yard dash in the Christian life. Jonah in verse 3 questions God's right to deliver. He challenges God's right now to destroy the gourd. You know, why are you going to deliver these guys? Why do you destroy this gourd? Jonah is just a why God? Instead of, okay, God, I don't understand everything you're doing, but help me to understand. Help understand. It seems like every time Jonah does not get his way, folks, he just wants to die. And I am sorry. I have sympathy and compassion for people that are all over the place. Sometimes I'm all over the place. But I think a number of you folks said today that sometimes we've got to just stop and do some wrestling, let God win, let God know we know you're in charge, we know you're authority in our life, we know you're sovereign, we know you have the answers. I don't understand. I'm fighting with my feelings, I'm fighting with my emotions, I'm fighting with anger, I'm fighting with jealousy of this person. I don't like this person, or I don't like these people, or I don't like this person at church, or I don't like this family, or I'm frustrated, I'm angry, I'm resentful, and I don't want to be there, God. Jonah just shows us what's inside of every one of our hearts, and we don't have time this morning, but probably each one of you can pinpoint something in your heart that you wrestle with, and you wrestle with God. I think the easiest way is to let God have his way, and then just, okay, God, now show me the answers. Help me to understand why. Help me not to have a Jonah heart, angry. A lot of times it's our own desires instead of God's desire. Change my heart. Give me a new heart. Give me a fresh heart. Clean my heart up, right? I don't think we have any pianos or a song leader, both, and there's no way. Oh, duh, we got both. You know, we missed a couple weeks last week. Do you think we could go over that one hymn?
Caleb's always ready to bang on the ivory.
Can't find my little sticky note. Gentle Waters, 170. Think we could go over that? Your sister's somebody here.
Page 170.
I like to look, I like to.
Jonathan, what's the title for people that wanna look it up on their?
By Gentle Waters. By Gentle Waters. Page 170.
Okay.
170. Page 1.
Yes, ma'am. I don't think you want
You
that.
close the prayer.
It's not the one you're saying.
Never heard like this.
Let's close in prayer. Father, thank you that you guide us each and every day. Thank you for your gentleness as you teach each one of us, even though we're rebellious sometimes. Give Pastor the words to say as we go into the next service. In Jesus' name, amen.